Right now on the National Weather Desk, powerful storms flood roads and subway stations while knocking down trees in the Mid-Atlantic.
This would have been unsurvivable if somebody was in the driver's seat.
It's been a quiet start to hurricane season in the Atlantic, but that could change this month.
90% of all hurricanes form after August 1st.
What causes the type of turbulence that injured 24 people on a flight this week?
The more severe kinds of turbulence are often associated with wind blowing over mountains.
How much did you water your lawn in the brutal summer heat?
You should water about 1 to 2 times per week and about 1 inch of water per week as well.
And details of a world record lightning bolt that was over 500 miles long.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. A powerful line of severe storms brought flash flooding to large sections of the Mid-Atlantic on Thursday. Let's start in New York City, where water once again poured into subway stations. In some places, it even filled the tracks up to the platform. On the roads, several drivers had to be rescued after water nearly covered their cars, and a manhole in Staten Island looked more like a fountain. Heading south, a 13-year-old boy, though, died after he was swept into a drainage pipe. Firefighters in Mount Airy said the water was rushing too fast and the pipe was too narrow to save that child. Storms also hit the Washington, D.C. region. Up to 4 inches of rain flooded roads and trapped drivers. And as Jay Korf shows us, the winds took down numerous large trees.
This would have been unsurvivable if somebody was in the driver's seat. And if you go over to this is probably an oak or a maple. You can literally see inside the engine. There's the radiator. This thing has been absolutely obliterated. Over here, this car completely destroyed, and you can see the explosive effect from the tree hitting the glass. There are glass shards all on the grass and all the way up to that hill. Now we're going to walk around. You can see the size of this root ball. We've seen some video on social media showing how powerful the winds were and how sheets of rain were coming down. Well, this is the result.
It was a similar scene after storms rolled through western North Carolina. Mark Liverman shows us one family that survived a tree falling on their home.
I felt it in the floor, and then the lights flickered twice, and then a loud crash. Like, I thought the whole house was gone. I came running out.
Autumn Richards says she was in the shower at the time, her 6-year-old granddaughter in another part of the house.
Screaming for my granddaughter, and just the trees were, like there was water pouring in. It was dark, and there was glass everywhere.
Adrenaline pumping as family members called out to each other from inside. Richards says within minutes, all 6 people were accounted for. Somehow, all of them unhurt.
The tropics continue to be very active, at least in the Pacific. Tropical Storm Gil is expected to become a hurricane today, but the good news is that it's expected to remain at sea. Further west, Tropical Storm Iona continues its move across the ocean with no impact to land. And there are 3 other disturbances the National Hurricane Center is monitoring. That's very different from the Atlantic, which has been pretty quiet. Meteorologist Jennifer Collins says it could heat up in August.
The start of the peak of hurricane season is just around the corner, and as we turn the calendar to August, the Atlantic is quiet for now. No tropical development is expected through the first week. But August marks the beginning of the most active stretch of hurricane season. Hurricane season, which runs from June 1st through November 30th. But the climatological peak of hurricane season is September 10th, with the highest activity typically occurring between mid-August and mid-October. In fact, 90% of all hurricanes form after August 1st, and August alone accounts for nearly 22% of all tropical storms since 1851. This surge in activity is fueled by warmer ocean water temperatures during this time of the year and less Saharan dust in the atmosphere over the central Atlantic. It's also stronger, more organized tropical waves that roll off the coast of Africa. And these waves often develop into what are known as Cape Verde hurricanes, or long-track storms that can become powerful as they cross the Atlantic. Their path is often guided by the Bermuda High, a large area of high pressure in the subtropical Atlantic. A stronger Bermuda High can steer storms farther west into the Caribbean and eventually the Gulf, and even impact the southeastern United States. A weaker high may allow storms to curve northward, staying over open waters or brushing the east coast of the United States. We're now about 1/3 of the way through hurricane season, and history reminds us that August can be dangerous. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew slammed South Florida as a Category 5 on August 23rd. And in 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans and the Central Gulf in late August on August 29th. The 2005 and 1992 hurricane seasons were both very different. In 2005, the hurricane season was quite active. In fact, we even went into the Greek alphabet as a result of how active the season was. But in 1992, this hurricane season was actually below average, and Hurricane Andrew was the only major hurricane to form during that season. So this is a prime example that even a below average season can bring an impactful storm.
This first day of August is also a perfect time to check out the Climate Prediction Center's monthly outlook. Let's start with temperatures where the northern Rockies, Northeast, and Florida are not expecting any relief from the summer heat. The rest of the nation either has an above average or equal chances of higher temperatures. As for precipitation, it's a 50-50 chance of above average rain across most of the country, but it could be rainy in the southeast and drier in the northern plains and northwest. Strong turbulence on a Delta Airlines flight sent 25 people to the hospital. The plane was heading from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam when it encountered the turbulence. Passengers said flight attendants hit the ceilings as the plane reportedly dropped 1,000 feet. The plane made an emergency landing in Minneapolis. Turbulence can happen at any time during a flight, often without warning. A meteorologist who studies aviation turbulence talked about it on an episode of our podcast, Off the Radar.
On a sunny day, you can have air thermals, warm air moving up and down in the atmosphere, and that will make your plane move up and down. The more severe kinds of turbulence are often associated with wind blowing over mountains. And so in the end, it's something that we can't directly simulate in today's computer models. So we forecast it by larger scale of properties of the atmosphere that we can simulate.
Can you tell me about what this does to a plane?
Very, very rarely do you have an airplane affected by turbulence to the extent that the airworthiness is threatened. In other words, turbulence isn't going to knock a plane out of the sky, but it is scary because you're trapped on the airplane and you don't know what to do. Keep your seatbelt fastened. That will keep you from being thrown around if, in the rare case of severe or extreme turbulence, you start to pull G's, and so you fly up or you're slammed down in your chair. Most of these turbulence events last a very short amount of time because the pilots get the heck out of it as soon as they're in it. So they either climb or descend or do something to avoid the region.
The World Meteorological Organization just certified a new world record for the longest single lightning flash. It happened back in October of 2017 and was an incredible 515 miles long from eastern Texas to near Kansas City, Missouri. Scientists at the Georgia Tech Research Institute just discovered the bolt and created this visualization through a reanalysis using satellite instruments, including NASA's GOES 16 satellite. The previous record was 477 miles set in 2020. Major League Baseball is coming to Bristol Motor Speedway Saturday. Meteorologist Dave Dirks has details, the forecast, and also some fun facts.
The world's fastest half mile is set to hit a grand slam Saturday evening at the Speedway Classic at Bristol Motor Speedway when the Atlanta Braves take on the Cincinnati Reds. Major League Baseball Speedway Classic will break the all-time single-game regular season attendance record with more than 85,000 tickets already sold. The current record goes way back to 1954 when more than 84,000 fans packed Cleveland Stadium to attend a game between the New York Yankees and Cleveland. So far, fans from every state, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and 9 other countries plan to attend the matchup Saturday evening. This will be the first Major League Baseball game ever played in the state of Tennessee. Here's the forecast. Cooler and less humid air will run the bases and slide into Bristol later in the day. A stray shower can't be ruled out through early evening, but mild and comfortable temperatures prevail, starting near 80 and falling into the upper 60s to low 70s by late evening.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
In Wisconsin, the West Nile virus was reported in a person for the first time this season. Officials are warning more cases could follow. Tony Langfellow tells us what experts say we should look out for.
In general, when we have wet, rainy years like we have been having in most parts of Wisconsin lately, that really sets the stage for high mosquito populations.
Extension entomologist PJ Leash at UW-Madison says there are more mosquitoes this year compared to the last 3 to 5 years.
Every year is a little bit different in terms of mosquito activity, which species are active and most abundant, and not all of those species can transmit West Nile. It's usually only a select few that are the key players in this game.
While standing water is generally the biggest mosquito breeding ground, Leash says sometimes if there's a lot of rainfall, those mosquito pools can get washed away.
Those developing mosquito larvae can actually get flushed away. It may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but in some regards, that can actually keep West Nile cases a little bit lower.
While Wisconsin has just one recorded case of West Nile virus, the State Department of Health Services reports the state averages around 18 cases a year. While rare, a higher mosquito population this year means taking precautions now is key.
Seeing if there are any things that are pooling water, so anything that can be dumped over so that mosquito breeding grounds are not being promoted.
The De Pere Health Department suggests wearing bug spray, long sleeves and pants, and limit your time outside. Many people who get West Nile generally don't show symptoms, but it depends on a person's immune system. Those who do may experience flu-like symptoms, such as fever, fatigue, and joint pains.
It's important that if you have any symptoms, to talk to your doctor and talk about your concerns with potential West Nile virus.
The power and force of weather can turn deadly, but the #1 weather-related killer is the silent kind. Meteorologist Brett Luna explains.
Biggest weather-related killer, it may not be what you think it is. If you're thinking tornadoes or hurricanes or lightning, think again, because the answer, it's actually heat. Heat kills more people than anything else in America on average per year. In 2023, according to the CDC, more than 2,300 people died from excessive heat and more than 120,000 landed in the emergency room. According to the EPA, since 1979, more than 14,000 deaths are directly from heat-related issues. The two most common heat-related issues, that's heat stroke and heat exhaustion. Heat stroke is the worst of the two, and if you're having signs of a heat stroke, you need to call 911 ASAP. Symptoms of a heat stroke include a throbbing headache, no sweating, red-hot dry skin, a rapid, strong pulse, and you could lose consciousness. Heat exhaustion isn't quite as severe as a heat stroke, but once you start feeling symptoms of heat exhaustion, you need to try and get to a cool and dry air-conditioned place, drink water if you're conscious, and take a cool shower or use a cold compress. Symptoms of heat exhaustion include being faint or dizzy, excessive sweating, cool, pale, clammy skin, a rapid, weak pulse, and muscle cramps. You just really need to keep this in mind as we go through the summer. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid. Enjoy it, but just stay hydrated.
Heat isn't just a risk to your health. It can also impact the health of your lawn. Meteorologist Violet Skyborg tells us when and how much you should water in order to keep your grass healthy during extreme heat.
How often should you be watering your lawn? Well, first, you should do it in the morning before 9 a.m. You should water about 1 to 2 times per week and about 1 inch of water per week as well. But does the time of day really make that big of a difference? It can actually hurt or help your lawn. If you're doing it in the morning, that's the best time. There's less evaporation. The plants are more receptive to water intake before they start to absorb sunlight and produce photosynthesis. Midday to afternoon is the worst. There's rapid evaporation, and the water that's left on the plants can even burn the plants, acting like a magnifying glass, allowing that sunlight in to burn them. In the evening, it's too damp, and it keeps the water damp on top of the plants all night long, allowing fungal growth and even disease. So make sure to water them in the morning and water them frequently.
Meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael in Columbus, Ohio answers viewer questions on Facebook. It's a segment he calls Weather Bucket. Let's take a look at what questions he's answering this week.
What is up, everyone? Andrew Buck-Michael back with another round of your Weather Bucket questions, but it is empty. We are going to start fresh, so I have a bunch of questions here. You may recognize some of these questions. So let's throw them in here, and let's answer a few of these questions. We're going to grab a couple of them out. Don't know what they are, so let's just grab out and see what we got. We got the first one here, and we'll grab another one And all right, so the first one here, Elisa asking, what are your thoughts on the enhanced Fujita scale? I feel like there have been multiple tornadoes that have hit throughout the country and feel like it probably looks like EF5 ratings, but due to the scale covering destruction of property as well as the winds, I feel like we're not getting as many EF5 ratings. Well, it's very interesting because there's not very many EF5 tornadoes. We do have extreme destruction with some of these tornadoes, but typically they are very, very rare. Now, these National Weather Service meteorologists go out and assess the damage to try to see how bad this damage was. They look at a bunch of different things, whether it's the structure of the home, how it was built, and also look at other things like the trees, hardwood trees versus softwood trees. So there's a lot of different criteria that they assess when they look at these different tornadoes and the destruction that they have. All right, second question here. Ed asking, for every foggy day in August, is it a snowy day in winter? This is something Jim Ganal and I talked a lot about. I told him, in my opinion, I think it's more of a coincidence because if you look at the years when we had the foggy days in August to snowy days in the winter, at least a half an inch or more, they averaged out about 15 every single year. Some years there were a lot more foggy days. Some years there were a lot more snowy days. It just happens that they both sometimes lined up. So you can be the judge of that yourself. Anyways, thanks to Alyssa. Thanks to also Ed for sending in these weather questions. And we've got more coming up next time.
NOAA's Weather Radio Network may be old technology, but it's been doing its job alerting the public to dangerous weather hazards for 50 years. This week on our podcast, Off the Radar, meteorologist Emily Gracie sat down with a spokesperson from Midland Radios to find out why it's so important to have a weather radio in your home. Here is a preview of that episode.
You may feel prepared for the next weather emergency. You've got the latest weather apps on your phone, push notifications turned on, maybe even a smart home system that can alert you to severe weather. But what happens when modern tech hits its limits? When the power grid fails, when cell towers get knocked out, when your battery dies? That's when you want something that's been quietly doing one job and doing it perfectly for 50 years. Something that doesn't need Wi-Fi, doesn't need cell data, doesn't need anything except radio waves cutting through the storm.
They can do it automatically without you even touching the radio. And that's what saves lives, especially flash floods and tornadoes that happen in the dark of night.
This week, we're going off the radar to learn about NOAA Weather Radio's surprising history, essential setup tips, and separating fact from fiction about the future of this life-saving network.
And time now for a short break, but first we take to the skies over farms in Oklahoma.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Here's something interesting. The discovery of radioactive wasps. Meteorologist Taylor Knost explains on Instagram.
Something that sounds like the beginning of a sci-fi movie was discovered in Aiken, South Carolina earlier this month. On July 3rd, workers at the Savannah River Site nuclear facility discovered a wasp nest contaminated with radioactive material. According to a report from the U.S. Department of Energy, the nest's contamination level was more than 10 times above regulatory limits. The report says this is not related to a current loss of contamination control, but is rather the result of a legacy radioactive contamination. The nest was sprayed to kill the wasps, then bagged as radiological waste. The ground and surrounding area did not have any contamination. The Savannah River site was built in the 1950s to produce materials for nuclear weapons during the Cold War era. Since 1992, the facility has shifted its focus to environmental cleanup, nuclear materials management, and research and development.
We'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back.